What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's 2 transfer videos in 2 days. Who'd have thought it? But there's been a lot more news since I was last with you yesterday, so I wanted to do a roundup of it, give you my thoughts on it with both the players leaving Celtic and the players we are being linked with. And we'll start on that note today with the football transfer story this morning that Celtic are interested in 20-year-old Augsburg midfielder Arne Engels. He's Belgian, as I say, 20 years old. He's made 50 Bundesliga appearances for Augsburg, who finished 11th in the German top flight last season. Played predominantly as a defensive midfield player, but has also played in the more advanced midfield role as well. He got 3 goals and 2 assists in the last campaign in the Bundesliga. And this is the type of profile of player I would like Celtic to go for more often. Now, we don't know how concrete Celtic's interest is. The story written by Ronan Murphy on Football Transfers this morning says that Brendan Rodgers has made the midfielder a top priority. Whether this is the type of player that we've earmarked as a contingency for losing Matt O'Riley towards the end of the month, I don't know. He's currently rated between €7 million and €12 million on Transfermarkt, so I think that is a possibility that if we're to lose O'Riley, we'd be looking at a player like this. Can I see a situation where we keep O'Riley and go and sign a €10 million midfielder for the Bundesliga? I don't think so, but when people ask, what more do you expect from the club? What are you looking for in terms of transfers and what you'd like to see Celtic do more? There's lots of things, but one of them is looking at players of Engels' profile, playing in a top 5 league, but not for one of the big clubs. I know that when you've played something like 50 games in one of the top 5 leagues, there's a lot of eyes on you. I know a lot of the top clubs in Europe will be aware of players like this. It's not clear how much competition there is for someone like Arne Engels. You'd expect, if he's highly rated at that age, having played in the Bundesliga, lots of other European clubs will be keeping tabs on him, and that might make it difficult for Celtic to make a compelling case to bring him to the club. But this is the profile of player I would like to see Celtic go after a lot more often. I think there's a good case to be made for a player like this, that Celtic is the next step for them in their career, to come to a big club with a high demand, where you need to win week in and week out, and have exposure to Champions League football. I think Celtic is a great platform for players like this to develop. Now, obviously, there's a financial aspect to that. Can we meet the asking price of the club, which is a big problem for Celtic whenever we see them linked with these types of players, and even players of any standard, really, from any club. It always comes with that tagline, some way off valuation. So with a player like this, we would have to put our hand in our pocket and meet Augsburg's valuation, and then make a good case in terms of pay package and salary to try and get someone like this to the club. But I think in terms of exposure to European football, the demand of Celtic having to win week in and week out, this is a good place for someone like this to develop. Again, we don't know how much concrete interest there is. It might be something that never gets off the ground. But if we have made a player like this a priority, I would love to go and see us bring in someone like this. As I say, predominantly a defensive midfield player, but from the couple of clips I watched today, he's got a great passing range. He can score a goal despite the fact he's played in that deeper midfield position a lot for Augsburg, and rated as a wonderkid in the article by Ronan Murphy, which you can see sort of scrolling through your screen now. As I say, this is a move that I would really like to see us pursue. I would like to see us being linked with players like this a lot more often for the reasons I've already listed, but it does come back to that question mark about whether Matt O'Riley will still be a Celtic player come the summer. Most people expect us to lose him, and I expect, again, if MD reaches that £25 million mark for O'Riley, I absolutely expect him to leave the football club. But it's important for us that we've got players like this on the shortlist to come in and replace him. And again, for those reasons I've already mentioned about the other interest in him, what price Augsburg would be looking for, we would have to really dig deep and go and meet that. I suppose off the back of the deal for Ida, the club can pay in those sorts of ranges, and I would like to see us go and do it for someone of this profile. So we'll keep tabs on this, and if there's any more movement on it, we'll be back to talk about it with you. I hope there's something in it, and I hope this is the kind of player that we can attract, particularly if we lose Matt O'Riley, because losing someone like O'Riley in that midfield, he's become such a key player for us, particularly in the last 12 to 18 months. He's been the top player in the team, and I think having him in midfield has been so important for us, both in the Champions League and some of those better performances we had last campaign, but also domestically as well. You can tell he's just a cut above everybody else in the league. And if we were to lose him for that midfield, it would be a huge blow. Right now, as the squad stands, you're looking at someone like Bernardo coming in to replace him. And I do think there's a drop off there. I don't think they're similar enough players, Bernardo and O'Reilly. I don't think Bernardo gives you that attacking threat going forward in terms of goals and assists the way O'Reilly has developed in the last couple of seasons. So this is someone I would love us to bring in, someone of this profile, if we need to replace Matt O'Reilly. And it's important that we have someone lined up, because it would be a huge blow for us to enter the last couple of weeks or the last week of this transfer window, lose our best player and then not replace him. That's something the club have to guard against. That's absolutely imperative that we don't end the transfer window weaker because we lose our best player and we don't bring anybody in to replace him. Now, moving on to players who are on the way out of Celtic, we'll start with Kwon, who's gone on loan to Hibs for the season. I think this is a good move for him. He obviously went to St Mirren last season. I think he impressed. I remember particularly the first 2 or 3 games. There was rave reviews about his performances for St Mirren. I think he did pick up an injury a little bit after that, but Kwon's a player that I don't expect ever to make the grade as a first team player for Celtic. I don't ever see him holding down a midfield place at Celtic. It's probably the situation where he's on a long contract and Celtic have to sort of manage that situation until they can offload him permanently. But I think Hibs is a good move for him. And again, if we've got these sort of fringe players that we can't offload, I think sending them to other Scottish Premiership teams is a wise move for us. It obviously bolsters their squads, but obviously that player can't then play against us whenever the fixtures roll around. So good luck to Kwon at Hibs. Again, as I say, I don't ever expect him to get to the place where he comes back from a loan deal and goes into the Celtic first team, but we'll just do our best with that. In other news, Daniel Kelly looks like he's signed a pre-contract with Millwall. This is interesting in the context of the debate about youth players. Obviously, a lot of debate surrounding that in terms of losing youth players before they even make an impact or make an appearance in the first team. We've seen a lot of guys move on recently. Liam Morrison, going back a few years, Ben Doak, Vokovata this summer, now Daniel Kelly. Kelly was linked with Bayer Leverkusen and some other European clubs earlier in this transfer window. I think his contract is up in January, so he can sign a pre-contract agreement now. Whether they're looking at trying to move him this summer as well, it's probably best for his development rather than him sticking around in the B team until he moves on. But it's really interesting that he's ended up at a team like Millwall. I think the Millwall manager confirmed that he has signed the contract in an interview last night. Now, the problem for Celtic is, can they create a pathway for these players into the first team? Given the demands of playing for Celtic, given the expectations week in and week out, it's a high standard to play for Celtic, particularly when you've come through the youth system. But there is enough examples there over the years. Kieran Tierney, James Forrest, Callum McGregor, all of these guys have become long-term first-team players. In the case of Tierney, he's made the first team and then made the club a huge, huge profit when he moved on to Arsenal for 25 million quid. So it can be done, but you need to be a really good player and you need to be willing to stay and earn your place in the Celtic first team. That's difficult for these young boys when they have agents, and there might be clubs in England, whether it be in the Championship or lower leagues, able to offer them a better financial package than Celtic can. But I don't think anyone who's left from the Celtic B team or the youth academy to go to a bigger club down south has really made a compelling case that that's the right move for their career yet. I know Ben Doak's gone to Liverpool. Actually, stories in the last few days linking him with us, whether that being a loan return, but also that Liverpool are now open to permanent offers for Ben Doak as well. So I know he's had injuries, hasn't really worked out for him down there, but Wokovata's gone to Watford, Daniel Kelly's going to Millwall. Can these boys go on and prove that Millwall and Watford are much better platforms to start their professional career than Celtic? That's the challenge, and I don't think until we see a theme of these guys going and making good careers for themselves at a really good level, starting in these Championship clubs, we can't say that Celtic are at fault for letting them go. I think in the case of Kelly, he's been offered a contract. Where that's at, we don't know financially for him. Can someone like Millwall offer him better money, or is it purely a case of being able to offer him more first team minutes? We'll see how it pans out. But I think for Celtic, all they can do is offer these boys a contract and show them that they might have to be patient, and they're going to need to get to a high level and impress the manager to get in the first team. But certainly right now, as it stands, there's no clear case that going to the English Championship is much better for their development than staying at Celtic, because if you look at the Celtic team in the last 10 years, the exceptional players have made an impact and they have played in the first team. The captain is a youth academy product. James Forrest, one of the most decorated players in the club's history, has come through the youth academy, and Kieran Tierney is a joint record sale for the club at 25 million quid along with Jota. So you have to be exceptional, but you can make the first team, and it's to be seen whether these boys are making the right decision by going to the Championship and lower leagues in England to start their career, rather than staying and trying to fight for a first team place at Celtic. So that's it for today's transfer roundup. You can let me know what you think of everything discussed in the comments below. Would you like to see us bring in someone like Engels? Do you think that's the right priority for us? Would you like to see us try and spend that money if this is a player we are interested in another area of the squad? And let me know what you think of Kwon's loan move to Hibs and Kelly's permanent move to Millwall in January. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts below. Please don't forget to subscribe. We'll bring you more videos than ever before this season, and we'll see you again very soon before that game against Hibs at the weekend. Thank you.